Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good in our community. And you're going to love this one. We are honored to have with us Becca Stevens. And normally I don't read the bio, but this is a really good one. And so I want to do it justice. President and founder of Thistle Farms, Becca is a speaker, social entrepreneur, author, priest, founder of 10 nonprofit justice initiatives, and founder of Thistle Farms. And so when you talk about being featured, PBS NewsHour, The Today Show, CNN, ABC World News, named a CNN hero and White House champion of change, we're honored to have you. So how are you doing, Becca?
I'm good, and I'm happy to be talking to you. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know it has been a while. We were talking before we recorded about being here in Memphis and sharing your story and speaking with Thistle Farms on your end. Talk, though, a little bit about just your backstory before we talk about the book, because that's what you want to come on, and you've got a new book, Practically Divine. We'll talk all about that, but give us a little bit of your backstory so we kind of understand the context.
Sure. So I am from Nashville, Tennessee, and I was raised here in the good and bad and all in between that community has to offer. You know, I was raised by a single mom with 5 kids after my dad was killed by a drunk driver when I was 5, went all the way through public school, ended up being an Episcopal priest, suffered when I was little from my own journey of, sexual abuse, assault, and started about 25 years ago really knowing I wanted to open up sanctuaries for women who had those same similar experiences. And that's how Thistle Farms got started. One house in Nashville grew to, because women were so poor coming off the streets and out of prison, we started our own company that became the largest justice enterprise around the U.S. We started sister communities like our good friends in Memphis, Thistle and Bee. We have 30 global partners. I just got back from the mountains of Oaxaca, Mexico, with a group of amazing women who are artisans and survivors. And I just, I live for a good arts and crafts justice product that helps, change our hearts and make the world a little more hopeful and beautiful.
How does your personal story and what you went through allow you to have the empathy, the understanding of the nuances and what it takes to create the change? In other words, how does your story allow you to be a change maker, to really create this change at a much larger level than those that are kind of serving on the boundaries?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons for that. One is you have street cred, right? I mean, if you had what I went through was about, best of my memory was some of the first experiences. It was about 3 years from the beginning to the end of that experience. And so, you can have empathy, you can relate, that it's not just that, it's all the stuff that follows that, the mistrust of authority, the triggering, the panic, all of those things that, unhealthy relationships, all of it that follows in its wake. You understand that in other people. So it's easy to have compassion and to say, look, why are you judging anybody? You don't even know. But the other thing to me is not only does it help you enter that world, but also, there's a thing called post-traumatic growth. There's a thing about, like, I got some gifts in that too. Like, I am really not risk averse. I'm pretty courageous. Like, what can anybody do to me? Like, you get resilient, you get strong, and you get courageous in some of those things too. So I think both of those things work together to open doors, to develop relationships, to have compassion and grow something for your whole life. And at the end of it, still be grateful.
When you look at Thistle Farms, Thistle and Bee, the different social enterprises, what would you want everyone to know in terms of the good that's being done, the heart for serving others? What would you want the public to know, kind of deeply rooted in this work?
Well, I would want people to know first that we are a mission with a business, not a business with a mission. And being a mission with a business does not in any way decrease the value, the quality, the superior nature of the all natural products we produce. I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's for charity, it must not be that great. It's like the highest quality on purpose from producer to consumer at every level. We understand markets. We understand if we want a tea to be healing, it has to be healing from the picker of the tea to the person who is drinking the tea all the way through. So we have not compromised quality. We have not compromised anything about our labor sources. We have not compromised on our beliefs about healing the earth as a body as well. And we have not compromised on our integrity, that all the money goes back to serving women who are coming off the streets. That's what I would want people to know. And so many people say to me, you are so inspiring, I love what you do. And then they go buy their soap at Target. And what I want people to also know is, because that is the nature of what we do, is we sell products to serve women, is like, if you are inspired, then put your money where your values are.
What's really phenomenal is when you look at the social enterprise, like you're talking about, it's over $50 million. I mean, you're talking large amounts of money that these social enterprises are being able to provide something of value, at the same time drive this mission work that creates transformational change with the individuals. And so give us an illustration. You don't have to name names, obviously, but just, when you talk about exemplifying what you do, why you do it, and the impact it has, what's a story that puts a smile on your face?
Well, one that's pretty recent, and I say this because I think all of us in this media world, in the justice enterprising world, in institutional church work, everybody wants to know, how are you scaling? How are you sustaining? What are your numbers? What are your budgets? And it can get like, I have to get big. And that's the whole thing of like, there's always people bigger and there's always people smaller in so many ways. And we want to feel like our work has meaning and depth while we are growing, while we are trying to do this. And for me, the story that captured us all is the woman that I met probably 15 years ago, more than a decade and a half ago, who had more than 150 arrests on her record, starting at the age of 9 years old out of New York City. She graduated and she was still suffering with that huge, huge record, because, it affects your housing. It affects how your kids live. It affects your ability to earn money, to buy a car, whatever it is. And she had a group of lawyers, and they took her back to New York, and she was able, because of her hard work, because of this amazing community, which includes advocacy. She went to New York, she got everything expunged. Her kids came back. They, bought a house. She got a good job with vacation, all of those things that you want. She came during COVID to visit us, and she had a little basket, and it was covered. And for the very few people, nobody could touch it, but she would lift it up and let us see her grandbaby. Her daughter, who graduated with a degree in criminal history, inspired by her mom, they brought that baby here as a princess that we could just barely look at. And what it made me think about, that I'm so grateful for, is in all this work and all this stuff that we do, sometimes it's not about the numbers and the growth. It is sometimes about staying in something long enough. What Rhonda did was, she took the generational trauma and took it upon herself to do that healing work, so that there was more healing for her daughters, so that we could have a grandbaby that was born into this joy. And if it's all I've done is be a small part of welcoming that baby, I'm good.
Love it. Let's switch over and talk about the book, Practically Divine. You've written many, many books. And so talk about why this book, what led you to write Practically Divine?
So this is my honest to God favorite book I've ever written. I've never done slow writing, slow thinking. COVID was great. For every author that's putting a book out now, it's probably one of their finest books, because we were not distracted. And I loved it. I loved gleaning from 25 years of work, cultivating these rich, heroic stories. I mean, if you love stories, you will love this book. It has got, in my mind, just heroic women telling good old Southern stories. And, I really thought it was time that, I got to share some of these insights after 25 years of what it means to say, don't wait for diamonds. Celebrate the courts along your path. Be present. See this practically divine beauty around you. And I do mean it practically divine, both the idea like it's almost divine, it's practically divine, and it's plenty divine. It's enough, almost enough. And also practically, like it's useful. It's a good thing. You can go out and use this and it will be well.
How does your mom play a role in this book?
So my mom's the hero of the story. You know, she's not only in my head with all her old sayings. I mean, she was from New York, and I'm telling you, when I hear my mother's voice, I can hear the tone still. And she's been gone more than 25 years. And, you know, I named all the chapters after one of her old sayings. I hope there's some humor in there for people, and I hope it makes people rethink some of the old sayings that really don't work for us anymore, and flipping them on their heels. Is it on their head or your heels? Do you flip it on your head, right?
Flip it on your head.
Yeah. But I'm going to flip it on the heels.
Hey, if you're like gymnastics, you flip over and you land on your heels. So, hey, it's, you know, maybe that's the new analogy. That's even better.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. But she is the hero, the creator, the inspiration. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, give us an example of when you talk about kind of the paradigm shifts, the mindset shifts, flipping it, you know, over. Give us an example of something that you want people to rethink.
Well, like bound to grace. My mom used to say, you know, you're bound to something. And she would say, you're bound to grace. And for me, I never really understood that. When I finally understood several meanings of it, it is, we are bound to it, meaning you can't get outside of it. There's nowhere to go where you're outside of that notion of grace, which is very comforting when your life is in chaos or you don't know where your future is or you've just had a huge loss. We're bound to grace. But also it means that's where you're headed. You know, our journeys begin and end with that grace. And so we're headed that way. So you don't have to think, you know, I'm going to get so lost that I will end up in a place I don't recognize. You're going, you know, we're headed home.
That may be a good example of this in terms of where I'm headed with the next question, but were there any aha moments where, as you're kind of analyzing these sayings and you're processing them and thinking, how does this apply to my life or others? Were there any aha moments where you're like, oh, wow, that's what that meant? Or, oh, that's a learning moment that I never thought. I've been doing it this way for so long and never even thought about that. Were there any aha moments?
Yes. The big one was about the chapter, We Can Make It. My mom used to say it all the time because, you know, we were barely making it. And I finally realized we can make it means you physically are making it in your hands. There's handmade knowledge. Like, you know, we can make it just kind of things you think I'm just going to eke out something. But honestly, she's the first person that ever really taught me about this intersection between our crafting and our making, our handmade stuff, and justice, and how that is revolutionary. And there's many examples in history. And I started really looking at how revolutionary this crafting is. And again, you can just think about the pandemic and how fast the world turned to who can make us a mask. We need some handmade masks, you know, like it's important stuff. And how what she gave me was a gift that is so beautiful that if I can make something beautiful, maybe I'm beautiful. Like if I can make something that's of value, maybe I have value. And that's part of what making it ourselves means. We can make it. We are worthy and beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard similar sayings where making something with your hands is good for the mind. It's good for the heart. I mean, there's so many kind of parallels. And even to your point, the difference of the inspirational, we can make it versus the physical. For a guy, be like the MacGyver, we can make it.
Yes.
Very different approach. And especially what it means for you physically to take ownership of the situation and be able to create change with confidence. I think that's light years difference between the inspiration and the physical. We can make this.
Well, I just read an article yesterday from Stanford about the idea of you have to get physical to make changes. Like if you want your mind to change, one of the first things to do is get physical. And like I said, I was in the mountains in Oaxaca, Mexico, the southernmost state, with a group of potters last week, and they were talking about handmade knowledge. And I keep thinking about, isn't it funny that these women up in these hills in the middle of Oaxaca are saying the same thing about using their hands to form this clay? That's what's going to heal their community. And these professors at Stanford University putting out this $10 billion study saying, hey, you might want to use your hands.
Yes, the irony. Well, what do you hope that readers take away from the book?
Oh, man, I hope people are feeling inspired. I hope people are feeling grounded. Like, here is where I am. I can be where I am. I don't have to be anywhere else to find this space of hope and vision. And then I hope people are challenged to do one thing different. Just do something different. So people a lot of times say, what can I do? And they want you to tell them stuff that they can do, and they're not really planning on changing anything. And what I'm doing is saying, this is not a self-help book. It's not 5 steps, and I'm going to give you the 4 C's, and you're going to find complete. It's here's the next tiny thing to do with intention to see how amazing it is right this second. Like, it is so full of possibilities right now.
I love it. Wrap up with where we can go to get the book. And then also, too, just how can we follow your efforts when you talk about the different social enterprises, Thistle Farms, all the different, obviously I don't want you to necessarily have to list all the different websites, but where do we go to learn more about the book and you and your efforts?
Thank you for that question. I love it. Listen, I'm on Instagram every day. Becca Stevens, DM me. I look at them every day. I'm happy to lead you wherever you want. If somebody's actually struggling and really wants some referrals, we can do that too. Also, you can go on the website, thistlefarms.org, and you can see everything we're about and take care of all your Christmas needs. You can buy the book, your local bookstore, Amazon, Thistle Farms, anywhere, books are sold, you'll find it. And I'm so grateful. I hope people read it.
Absolutely. Well, I love everything you're doing. Thank you so much for all of your efforts and for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll have to have you back again soon. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Peace.